you're losing because you react. You don't lose because you're weak. You lose because you react. Most people think failure comes from lack of talent, lack of money, lack of opportunity. That's comforting, because if it's external, it's not your fault. But the truth is quieter than that. You react too quickly, to pressure, to emotion, to opportunity, to insult, to fear. And every reaction costs you position. Life is not won by intensity, it is won by calculation. There is an invisible war happening in your mind every day. Impulse versus intention, emotion versus evaluation, urgency versus patience. Most people let urgency win because urgency feels powerful. It feels decisive. It feels like strength. But urgency is often weakness in disguise. When someone angers you, you answer immediately. When an opportunity appears, you jump immediately. When you feel behind, you move immediately. And in doing so, you reveal your hand. Strategists don't move first. They see first. There's a difference between being active and being positioned. Most people are active. Few are positioned. Activity makes you feel productive. Positioning makes you powerful. This is why two people can work equally hard, but one climbs while the other circles. One is reacting to events. The other is reading the board. Think about chess. The amateur sees a piece. The master sees a structure. The amateur responds to the last move. The master responds to the next 5. In life, most people are amateurs. They answer what just happened. They solve the immediate problem. They calm the current fire. But they never ask, what position am I creating? Every decision is a position. Every conversation is a position. Every yes is a position. Every no is a position. And positions compound. The split second between stimulus and response is where power lives. Most people never use it. They surrender it to emotion. Someone challenges you, you defend. Someone criticizes you, you explain. Someone pressures you, you agree. That reflex is expensive because when you react, you operate on their timeline. Strategic people operate on their own. Control is not loud. It is patient. It is deliberate. It is often silent. In a room full of talkers, the strategist listens. In a moment of chaos, the strategist slows down. In an argument, the strategist studies. Why? Because information moves before people do, and whoever gathers the most information moves with the least regret. Most people live in reaction mode. News triggers them, messages trigger them, deadlines trigger them, other people's moods trigger them. They call it being responsive, but responsiveness without calculation is surrender. If someone can provoke you easily, they can steer you easily. And if they can steer you, you are not playing your own game. Strategic thinking begins with a simple shift. Pause. The pause is not weakness. The pause is reconnaissance. It's the moment you ask, what is actually happening here? What is the long-term consequence? What does this move create? What does this move cost? Most losses are not dramatic. They are cumulative. Small reactive decisions made daily that compound into mediocrity. You accept what you shouldn't. You respond when you shouldn't. You commit when you shouldn't. You move before you understand the board. And then you call it bad luck. Strategists understand something different. Emotion is information, but it is not instruction. Feeling pressure does not mean move. Feeling excited does not mean commit. Feeling offended does not mean respond. The disciplined mind separates feeling from action. That separation is your edge. In this audiobook, you are not learning tricks. You are building an identity. The identity of someone who does not rush, does not panic, does not chase, does not react. Someone who calculates, someone who reads structures, someone who thinks in layers, someone who moves when the position is right. Because winning is rarely about force, it is about foresight. The world rewards those who see further, not louder.
Not faster, further. You don't need to be the smartest in the room. You need to be the most controlled, the most observant, the most patient. Most people are addicted to movement. Strategists are addicted to positioning. Most people fight battles. Strategists choose terrain, and terrain decides outcomes. By the end of this journey, you will not think the same way. You will notice patterns others miss. You will anticipate reactions before they happen. You will move with timing instead of tension. You will stop chasing outcomes. You will start designing them. Because the strategist does not win by effort, he wins by structure. And once you see structure, you cannot unsee it. From this moment forward, your goal is simple. Stop reacting. Start calculating. The board is already in front of you. You just need to learn how to see it. Let's begin.
Chapter 1. Reactive versus strategic. Survival mode versus control mode. Most people believe they are thinking. They are not. They are reacting. There is a difference. Reaction is automatic. Strategic thinking is intentional. Reaction happens in survival mode. Strategy happens in control mode. And most adults never leave survival mode. Survival mode isn't just about danger. It's about urgency, deadlines, notifications, arguments, competition, money pressure, social comparison. Your nervous system interprets all of it as threat, so you respond quickly. Fast replies, fast decisions, fast commitments, fast defenses. Speed feels strong, but speed without clarity is weakness. Survival mode narrows your thinking. It forces you into short-term decisions. It asks, how do I fix this now? Control mode asks, what does this create long-term? That difference decides outcomes. Why reacting feels powerful. When something happens and you respond immediately, it feels decisive. It feels confident. It feels like leadership. But most immediate reactions are emotional reflexes. You don't choose them, you discharge them. Anger demands expression, fear demands escape, excitement demands commitment, pressure demands agreement. So you move. But when you move emotionally, you reveal your position. You show urgency. You show insecurity. You show desire. And desire without leverage reduces your power. Strategic people understand this. The person who reacts first often loses control first. The cost of living in reaction mode. Reaction mode creates three major problems. You operate on other people's timelines. You solve symptoms, not systems. You sacrifice leverage for relief. Let's break that down. When someone pressures you and you respond instantly, you are now on their timeline. When someone insults you and you defend instantly, you are now on their emotional field. When you see an opportunity and commit instantly, you are now emotionally attached. Attachment reduces objectivity, and objectivity is strategic currency. Most people chase emotional relief. Strategic thinkers chase structural advantage. Relief feels good now. Advantage pays later. The invisible pattern. Look at your past decisions, not the dramatic ones, the small ones, the messages you answered too fast, the commitments you made without reflection, the purchases made from excitement, the arguments escalated from ego, the opportunities taken because you felt behind. Individually, they look harmless. Cumulatively, they shape your trajectory. Strategic thinking isn't about huge genius moves. It's about eliminating small reactive losses, because small losses compound faster than small wins. Survival mode is addictive. Why don't people slow down? Because reaction creates stimulation. Drama creates adrenaline. Urgency creates focus. Conflict creates identity. Reaction makes you feel alive. But stimulation is not strategy. It's noise. The disciplined mind is comfortable in stillness. Most people are not. Silence feels unproductive. Waiting feels weak. Observation feels passive. But in reality, observation is preparation. Waiting is positioning. Silence is data collection. The strategist studies while others speak. Control mode. The shift. Control mode is not about suppressing emotion. It is about separating emotion from execution. You still feel anger. You still feel excitement. You still feel pressure. But you don't act from it. You analyze it. You ask, why do I feel this? Who benefits if I move now? What happens if I wait? This pause is power. Between stimulus and response, there is space. Most people collapse that space. Strategists expand it. Inside that space, calculation happens. Thinking in consequences. Reactive people think in events. Strategic people think in consequences. An event happens. Reactive thinking asks, what does this mean right now? Strategic thinking asks, what does this lead to later? Every move has layers. Surface consequence, secondary consequence, reputation consequence, position consequence, relationship consequence. Most people only evaluate the first. Strategists evaluate the chain. Second-order thinking separates amateurs from masters. If I say yes now, what does that require later? If I defend myself now, what does that escalate? If I commit now, what options disappear? Options are strategic oxygen. Reaction reduces options. Ego is the enemy of strategy. Ego reacts. Strategy calculates. When someone challenges your status, ego wants immediate defense. When someone disrespects you, ego wants immediate correction. But power does not always need expression. Sometimes silence creates more authority than words. When you refuse to react, you force the other person to reveal more. And information is leverage. The calm person in the room is often the most dangerous one, because they are thinking while others are burning energy. The discipline of the pause. You must train the pause. It does not come naturally. The brain prefers efficiency. Reaction is efficient. Strategy requires friction. So you build micro habits. Delay important replies. Sleep on large decisions. Let silence sit in negotiations. Avoid immediate emotional responses. At first, it feels uncomfortable. Then it becomes identity. You begin to notice something. Most urgent situations aren't urgent. They only feel urgent because someone else is emotional. And emotional urgency is contagious. Strategic people resist contagion. From survival to structure. Survival mode says, I need to win this moment. Strategic mode says, I need to win the position. Winning moments feels good. Winning positions compounds. Imagine two professionals. One reacts to every opportunity. Says yes to everything. Defends every challenge. Moves quickly. The other selects carefully. Waits. Studies patterns. Positions deliberately. After 1 year, their effort may look similar. After 5 years, their trajectories diverge dramatically. Why? Because one built structure. The other chased moments. Structure scales. Moments evaporate. Identity shift. The biggest transformation is not tactical. It is identity-based. You stop seeing yourself as reactive. You begin seeing yourself as calculating. You stop needing to respond immediately. You become comfortable thinking deeply. You stop fighting for small wins. You start designing larger ones. Strategic thinking is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming controlled. Emotion is still there, but it is governed. When someone provokes you, you analyze the motive. When someone pressures you, you evaluate leverage. When opportunity appears, you examine timing. This is maturity. Not emotional maturity. Strategic maturity. The first rule. If you remember only one rule from this chapter, remember this. Never make important decisions in emotional states. Anger distorts risk. Excitement distorts probability. Fear distorts opportunity. Wait. Clarity is rarely urgent. Urgency is rarely clarity. Final shift. Most people lose because they move too soon. They speak too soon. They commit too soon. They react too soon. Strategists understand the one who sees first wins longer. From this point forward, your job is simple. When emotion rises, do not move. When pressure rises, do not rush. When opportunity appears, do not jump. Pause. Observe. Calculate. Because the difference between reactive and strategic is not intelligence. It is discipline. And discipline compounds. In the next chapter, we go deeper. Emotional control is not just stability. It is a weapon. Let's continue.
Chapter 2. Emotional control is a weapon. Calm dominance in a world that panics. Most people believe power looks loud. Raised voices, fast responses, visible confidence, strong reactions. But real power is quiet. It doesn't rush. It doesn't flare. It doesn't prove. It observes. And emotional control is the foundation of that power. Not suppression. Control. There is a difference. Suppression hides emotion. Control understands it and chooses the response. Why emotion is the first battlefield. Before strategy becomes external, it is internal. Your first opponent is not the market, not the competition, not the problem. It is your impulse. Anger wants retaliation. Fear wants retreat. Excitement wants commitment. Ego wants validation. If those impulses decide your moves, you are predictable, and predictability is weakness. Strategic thinkers train themselves to become emotionally unreadable. Not robotic, not numb, just steady. Because when others can't read your emotional state, they can't manipulate it. The person who loses first. In negotiation, the first person to show urgency loses leverage. In conflict, the first person to escalate loses control. In opportunity, the first person to show desperation loses advantage. Emotion leaks information, and information is currency. If someone sees that you want something badly, they control the price. If someone sees that you're offended, they control the tempo. If someone sees that you're afraid, they control the direction. Emotional control protects your position. Urgency is often weakness. We live in a culture obsessed with speed. Respond fast, decide fast, move fast. But speed without clarity creates strategic errors. Think about how many decisions you've made under pressure that you later questioned. The rushed yes, the heated reply, the defensive argument, the impulsive investment, the emotional purchase. Urgency compresses perspective. It forces you into tunnel vision. Strategic thinkers understand this. If someone is pushing you to move fast, it often benefits them, not you. The calm person expands time, and time increases power. Calm dominance. Calm is not passive. It is controlled intensity. Imagine two leaders in a crisis. One raises their voice, moves frantically, makes rapid decisions. The other lowers their voice, moves slowly, asks precise questions. Who feels more stable? Who commands the room? The second, because calm signals capacity. It tells everyone, I am not overwhelmed. And the person who isn't overwhelmed is the one who decides the direction. Calm dominance is psychological leverage. Training emotional distance. You must create space between feeling and acting. This is a skill, not personality. When something triggers you, your first reaction is not the truth. It is chemistry, adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine. Let the chemistry settle, then decide. A practical discipline. Never send important messages while emotional. Never commit under excitement. Never argue while angry. Delay is strategic. Delay filters distortion. Why emotional people are easier to control. Manipulation depends on reaction. If someone knows what makes you angry, they can trigger you. If someone knows what flatters you, they can bait you. If someone knows what scares you, they can pressure you. Emotional transparency without control is exposure. Strategic thinkers feel deeply, but reveal selectively. They don't perform their emotions in public. They analyze them privately. Because once someone can predict your reaction, they can steer you.
Ego, the silent saboteur. Ego hates silence. It wants to respond, to correct, to prove. But proving consumes energy and often reduces status. Strategic individuals don't defend everything. They choose battles based on outcome, not pride. Ask yourself, does responding increase my position or only satisfy my ego? Many arguments are traps disguised as opportunities to defend yourself. Walking away is not weakness, it is filtration. The power of stillness. Stillness unsettles reactive people. When you don't respond immediately, others fill the silence. They explain more, reveal more, expose more. Silence forces discomfort, and discomfort reveals information. In meetings, the person who speaks last often speaks strongest because they have the full landscape. Strategic silence is not absence, it is observation. Emotional control and long-term power. Short-term satisfaction often conflicts with long-term leverage. You might win an argument and lose a relationship. You might prove a point and damage a reputation. You might act fast and regret the consequences. Strategic thinkers ask, what preserves my position long-term? They measure moves in months, not minutes, in years, not days. Emotional control allows you to think in longer timelines. Patience as strategic superiority. Patience is misunderstood. People see it as passivity. It is not. It is timing discipline. The impatient person reveals intent too early. The patient person studies patterns, and patterns repeat. In business, in politics, in relationships, in human behavior. When you are emotionally steady, you see cycles. When you are emotionally reactive, you only see moments.
Crisis as a test. Anyone can appear strategic when conditions are stable. Real strategic identity shows during crisis. When something goes wrong, do you escalate or analyze? Do you panic or calculate? The person who remains steady in uncertainty becomes the natural leader. Not because they are louder, because they are grounded. And grounded people create stability. Practical training. Emotional control is not philosophy, it is repetition. 3 disciplines. 1. Delay response. When triggered, wait. 2. Even 10 minutes changes tone. 3. Lower voice, slow movement. When tension rises, slow yourself. Your body influences your mind. 4. Ask questions before answering. Questions create time. Time creates clarity. These habits rewire identity. You stop seeing yourself as reactive. You become measured. The hidden advantage. When you are emotionally controlled, you conserve energy. Reactive people burn energy constantly, in arguments, in defense, in drama, in urgency. Strategic thinkers invest energy selectively. They choose when to engage. This increases stamina, and stamina wins long games. The identity shift. At some point, this stops being effort and becomes identity. You are no longer someone who tries to stay calm. You are someone who calculates. People begin to feel it. They speak differently around you. They negotiate differently. They respect your silence. Because emotional stability signals authority. Authority without noise. Final principle. Emotion is information, but it is not instruction. Let it inform you. Do not let it command you. The person who controls their emotions controls their position, and the person who controls their position designs their outcomes. In the next chapter, we move beyond control into time, because strategic thinkers don't just manage emotions, they manage horizons.
Long-term thinking is the edge most people abandon. Let's sharpen it. Chapter 3. Long-term thinking in a short-term world. Second-order consequences. Why impatience destroys leverage. Most people live inside the next 24 hours. They wake up thinking about today's stress. They make decisions based on today's emotions. They choose actions based on today's discomfort. And then they wonder why their life never compounds. Strategists don't live in the next 24 hours. They live in the next 5 years. And that single difference changes everything. The short-term trap. We live in a world engineered to shrink your time horizon. Notifications demand immediate attention. Social media rewards instant reactions. News cycles refresh every hour. Markets move by the minute. People expect replies in seconds. Everything around you screams, now, now, now. And when you live in now, you become predictable. You become emotional. You become reactive. Short-term thinking feels productive. It feels urgent. It feels intense. But it is usually expensive. Because short-term thinking solves today's discomfort while creating tomorrow's problem. Strategic thinking does the opposite. It tolerates today's discomfort to secure tomorrow's advantage. The hidden cost of impatience. Impatience is one of the most underestimated liabilities in life. It looks like ambition. It feels like momentum. It sounds like confidence. But impatience often destroys leverage. Consider this. Quitting a skill too early because progress feels slow. Ending a partnership before it matures. Jumping into opportunities without full clarity. Responding emotionally to criticism. Taking quick money over long-term equity. Each of these decisions provides short-term relief. But they sabotage long-term positioning. Impatience trades future power for present comfort. Strategists understand something most people miss. Leverage grows quietly. And impatience kills quiet growth. Second-order thinking. Most people think in first-order consequences. If I do this, what happens immediately? Strategists think in second-order consequences. If I do this, what happens after that? And then they go further. And what happens after that? Second-order thinking is the ability to trace the ripple effect of your actions. It asks, what does this decision create next month? What doors does this open? What doors does this close? What habits does this reinforce? What identity does this strengthen? Let's make this practical. You're angry. You want to send a message. First-order thinking says, it will feel good. Second-order thinking says, it may damage trust. It may shift perception. It may create distance. It may weaken leverage. Now the move changes. Not because you're afraid, but because you see further. The compounding advantage. Long-term thinking unlocks something powerful. Compounding. Compounding isn't just financial. It's psychological. It's relational. It's strategic. Small, disciplined decisions made consistently over time create exponential advantage. But here's the catch. Compounding is invisible at the beginning. It looks boring. It looks slow. It looks unimpressive. That's why most people abandon it. They need validation too quickly. They need proof too soon. They need results before the structure is mature. Strategists don't panic during the invisible phase. They understand that what grows slowly often grows permanently. Why the world rewards short-term thinking. Short-term wins are loud. They're visible. They're flashy. They're praised. Long-term positioning is quiet. It requires restraint. It requires patience. It requires delayed gratification. And restraint rarely trends. But here's the irony. The people who appear to win quickly often burn out quickly. The people who build quietly often dominate quietly. Because long-term thinking doesn't just produce results, it produces stability. The 5-year lens. Here is a practical shift. Before making a decision, ask, how will I view this in 5 years? This question immediately expands your thinking. Will this argument matter in 5 years? Will this purchase matter in 5 years? Will this habit shape who I become in 5 years? Will this partnership grow in 5 years? Most emotional decisions collapse under long-term scrutiny. Most disciplined decisions strengthen under it. The 5-year lens filters noise. It filters ego. It filters urgency. And it reveals leverage. The patience of power. Power is patient. Weakness is urgent. If you watch negotiations, business moves, or even high-level chess, you'll notice something consistent. The strongest player rarely rushes. They wait, they observe, they gather, they position, because they understand timing and accumulation. Impatience forces premature movement, and premature movement exposes you. Strategists know that movement is not progress. Right movement is progress. Delayed gratification as a weapon. Delayed gratification is not self-denial, it's strategic allocation. You're not saying no to pleasure, you're saying not now. You're not rejecting opportunity, you're evaluating its long-term value. When you delay gratification, you build internal control. When you build internal control, you increase optionality. When you increase optionality, you increase leverage. Because you're no longer forced into decisions, you choose them. The identity shift. Long-term thinking isn't just a technique, it's an identity. You stop asking what feels good. You start asking what builds advantage. You stop asking how fast can I get it. You start asking how durable can I make it. You stop asking how do I win today. You start asking how do I position myself to win repeatedly. This is the difference between a performer and a strategist. Performers chase applause. Strategists build empires. Strategic sacrifice. Every long-term thinker understands sacrifice. But sacrifice isn't loss, it's repositioning. You sacrifice short-term ego for long-term influence. You sacrifice quick profit for scalable systems. You sacrifice immediate validation for lasting credibility. The key is intentional sacrifice. Not random suffering, not blind discipline, but calculated trade-offs. You give up what doesn't compound to gain what does.
Avoiding the short-term addiction. Short-term thinking becomes addictive. It creates adrenaline. It creates urgency. It creates constant stimulation. Long-term thinking feels calmer, quieter, less dramatic. That's why it feels boring to many people. But boring is often powerful. Calm is often calculated. Silence is often strength.
If you constantly need excitement to feel progress, you will sabotage leverage. Strategists train themselves to value stability over stimulation. Playing the long game in relationships. Long-term thinking applies beyond business. In relationships, it means not reacting to every misunderstanding, not escalating every disagreement, not seeking constant validation. Instead, you ask, what builds trust over time? Consistency, reliability, calmness. Those traits compound. Drama does not. Playing the long game in career. In career, long-term thinking means building skills before demanding recognition, learning before leading, positioning before announcing. Many people want authority before mastery. Strategists build mastery first, because authority without depth collapses, but authority built on depth compounds. Strategic patience versus passive waiting. Patience is not passivity. Waiting without preparation is weakness. Strategic patience is active. It means studying while others react, observing while others argue, building quietly while others broadcast loudly. It's controlled stillness, not indecision. You're not frozen, you're preparing. The power of restraint. Sometimes the most strategic move is no move, not replying, not escalating, not announcing. Restraint creates mystery. Restraint creates control. Restraint preserves optionality. When you react quickly, you reveal your position. When you wait, you gather information, and information strengthens leverage. The compound effect of discipline. Imagine two people. One chooses short-term excitement daily, the other chooses long-term advantage daily. In 1 month, they look similar. In 1 year, they look different. In 5 years, they live in different worlds. This is not luck, it's time horizon. The world rarely rewards you immediately for strategic patience, but it always rewards you eventually, because compound decisions build compound identity. Designing a life that compounds. Strategists don't just chase wins, they design structures that win repeatedly. They build habits that strengthen thinking, systems that reduce emotional decision-making, environments that protect focus, relationships that expand leverage. They don't rely on bursts of motivation, they rely on consistent positioning. And positioning is built through long-term thinking. From reaction to calculation. The shift begins here. Pause before reacting. Ask, what happens next? And then, what happens after that? If you train yourself to see the second ripple, you automatically elevate above the crowd. Because most people only see the splash. Strategists see the wave. The calm advantage. When you think long-term, something unexpected happens. You become calmer. You don't panic at setbacks. You don't over-celebrate small wins. You don't collapse under temporary pressure. Because you see the larger arc. You understand that not every move needs to win. It just needs to strengthen your position. Short-term thinkers chase moments. Long-term thinkers design trajectories. Short-term thinkers burn energy. Long-term thinkers build leverage. Short-term thinkers react to life. Long-term thinkers shape it. And once you adopt this identity, impatience starts to feel expensive. Because now you understand the most dangerous move is not the wrong move, it's the rushed move. In the next chapter, we go deeper, because long-term thinking requires discipline. And discipline begins with something most people avoid, the pause, the space between impulse and action, the moment where strategy is born. Chapter 4. The discipline of thinking before moving, training the pause, mental rehearsal, pre-decision clarity. Most mistakes are not caused by ignorance. They're caused by speed. Not physical speed, mental speed. The urge to respond immediately, to decide quickly, to act before thinking fully. And in a world that rewards fast reactions, the ability to pause becomes rare and powerful. Because between impulse and action, there is a space. And inside that space, strategy is born. The power of the pause. Most people don't lose because they lack intelligence. They lose because they lack interruption. They never interrupt their impulse. Someone challenges them, they respond immediately. An opportunity appears, they jump instantly. Pressure rises, they move emotionally. They mistake speed for strength. But the strategist understands something deeper. Control begins with delay. Not hesitation, not fear, delay. The pause is not weakness. It is control over your own nervous system. And if you cannot control your nervous system, you cannot control outcomes. Why reacting feels powerful. Reacting gives you adrenaline. It makes you feel decisive. It creates an illusion of dominance. But reaction is not dominance. Reaction is surrender. You are surrendering to the stimulus. Someone presses a button, you move. That is not strategy. That is programming. The disciplined thinker refuses to be programmed. They slow the moment down. They widen the space between stimulus and response. And in that widened space, they choose. Training the pause. The pause is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. Start small. When someone speaks sharply to you, pause before answering. When you feel the urge to defend yourself, pause before explaining. When you feel urgency rising in your chest, pause before deciding. That pause can be 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Because those seconds are everything. Because during that time, you're not reacting. You're observing. You're calculating. You're reclaiming control. Emotional discipline is strategic discipline. Emotion is not the enemy. Uncontrolled emotion is. Strategists do not suppress feeling. They regulate it. They understand. Emotion narrows perception. Calm widens it. When you're emotional, you see 1 move. When you're calm, you see 3. When you're reactive, you see conflict. When you're calm, you see leverage. The disciplined pause restores clarity. It prevents you from shrinking the battlefield into a single emotional exchange.
Mental rehearsal. Thinking before reality demands it. Elite performers rehearse mentally. Athletes visualize performance. Executives simulate negotiations. Military leaders plan contingencies. Strategists rehearse scenarios before they occur. This is not paranoia, it's preparation. Ask yourself, if this meeting goes badly, how will I respond? If someone challenges me publicly, how will I stay calm? If pressure increases, what's my move? When you rehearse mentally, you reduce surprise, and surprise is what triggers reaction. Prepared minds don't panic, they execute. Pre-decision clarity. Most people decide under pressure. Strategists decide before pressure arrives. They set standards in advance. They know what behavior they tolerate, what deals they reject, what principles they won't compromise, what long-term goals override short-term temptation. This is pre-decision clarity. It eliminates emotional negotiation. If you only decide what you stand for in the heat of the moment, you will likely lose the moment, because emotion is louder than logic under pressure. But when your decisions are preset, emotion has less influence. The cost of impulse. Impulse feels efficient, but it often costs reputation, trust, leverage, optionality. One impulsive message can close doors. One impulsive decision can expose weakness. One impulsive commitment can trap you. Strategists protect optionality, and optionality requires restraint. You don't move until you understand the board. You don't respond until you understand the motive. You don't commit until you understand the long-term position. Slowing down to speed up. This sounds contradictory, but slowing down strategically often accelerates progress. When you pause, you gather information. When you gather information, you reduce error. When you reduce error, you avoid setbacks. And avoiding setbacks is faster than correcting mistakes. Strategic delay prevents strategic damage. The silent advantage. When you don't react immediately, people notice. You appear grounded, measured, stable. That perception alone changes dynamics. Reactive people are predictable. Predictable people are easy to control. Calm people are harder to read. Harder to read means harder to manipulate. And in any environment, business, negotiation, leadership, uncertainty creates power. Mental rehearsal in practice. Before entering a situation, ask, what is my objective? What outcome matters most long-term? What emotional triggers might appear? How will I maintain composure? Visualize the conversation. Visualize tension. Visualize yourself staying composed. Your brain cannot fully distinguish between vivid rehearsal and reality. When the moment arrives, it feels familiar. Familiarity reduces panic. Reduced panic increases control, and control increases leverage. The discipline of silence. Silence is part of the pause. You don't need to fill every gap. You don't need to answer every accusation. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. Sometimes silence creates pressure. Sometimes silence reveals more information. Sometimes silence protects your position. When you speak too quickly, you reveal too much. When you pause, others reveal themselves. Mental rehearsal. Thinking before reality demands it. Elite performers rehearse mentally. Athletes visualize performance. Executives simulate negotiations. Military leaders plan contingencies. Strategists rehearse scenarios before they occur. This is not paranoia, it's preparation. Ask yourself, if this meeting goes badly, how will I respond? If someone challenges me publicly, how will I stay calm? If pressure increases, what's my move? When you rehearse mentally, you reduce surprise, and surprise is what triggers reaction. Prepared minds don't panic, they execute. Pre-decision clarity. Most people decide under pressure. Strategists decide before pressure arrives. They set standards in advance. They know what behavior they tolerate, what deals they reject, what principles they won't compromise, what long-term goals override short-term temptation. This is pre-decision clarity. It eliminates emotional negotiation. If you only decide what you stand for in the heat of the moment, you will likely lose the moment, because emotion is louder than logic under pressure. But when your decisions are preset, emotion has less influence. The cost of impulse. Impulse feels efficient, but it often costs reputation, trust, leverage, optionality. One impulsive message can close doors. One impulsive decision can expose weakness. One impulsive commitment can trap you. Strategists protect optionality, and optionality requires restraint. You don't move until you understand the board. You don't respond until you understand the motive. You don't commit until you understand the long-term position. Slowing down to speed up. This sounds contradictory, but slowing down strategically often accelerates progress. When you pause, you gather information. When you gather information, you reduce error. When you reduce error, you avoid setbacks. And avoiding setbacks is faster than correcting mistakes. Strategic delay prevents strategic damage. The silent advantage. When you don't react immediately, people notice. You appear grounded, measured, stable. That perception alone changes dynamics. Reactive people are predictable. Predictable people are easy to control. Calm people are harder to read. Harder to read means harder to manipulate. And in any environment, business, negotiation, leadership, uncertainty creates power. Mental rehearsal in practice. Before entering a situation, ask, what is my objective? What outcome matters most long-term? What emotional triggers might appear? How will I maintain composure? Visualize the conversation. Visualize tension. Visualize yourself staying composed. Your brain cannot fully distinguish between vivid rehearsal and reality. When the moment arrives, it feels familiar. Familiarity reduces panic. Reduced panic increases control, and control increases leverage. The discipline of silence. Silence is part of the pause. You don't need to fill every gap. You don't need to answer every accusation. You don't need to correct every misunderstanding. Sometimes silence creates pressure. Sometimes silence reveals more information. Sometimes silence protects your position. When you speak too quickly, you reveal too much. When you pause, others reveal themselves. Pre-deciding your identity. The ultimate discipline is identity-based. Decide who you are before life tests you. Are you someone who reacts, or someone who calculates? Are you someone who escalates, or someone who stabilizes? When identity is clear, decisions become easier. Because you're not choosing randomly. You're aligning with who you've already decided to be. Pressure reveals preparation. Under pressure, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your preparation. If you haven't trained the pause, pressure will expose that. If you haven't rehearsed mentally, pressure will overwhelm you. If you haven't clarified your standards, pressure will manipulate you. Strategists prepare in calm seasons so they dominate in chaotic ones. Avoiding analysis paralysis. Now, discipline does not mean overthinking. There's a difference between pausing and freezing. The pause is intentional. It's controlled. It has direction. Analysis paralysis is fear disguised as thinking. Strategic pause is clarity gathering. One drains energy, the other builds advantage. The difference is purpose. Are you delaying because you're afraid? Or because you're calculating?
The calm edge. In negotiations, the calmer person usually has leverage. In conflict, the calmer person controls escalation. In uncertainty, the calmer person sees opportunities. Calm is not passive. Calm is dominant. Because calm thinking sees patterns. Calm thinking sees incentives. Calm thinking sees the second move. The pause in high-stakes moments. Imagine, an investor pressures you to commit immediately. A competitor provokes you publicly. A colleague tries to shift blame. The instinct is speed. The advantage is pause. You slow your breathing. You observe the room. You ask clarifying questions. You respond deliberately. And suddenly, the power dynamic shifts. Because you are no longer reacting. You are steering. The long-term reward of discipline. Every time you pause instead of react, you strengthen neural control. You become less emotionally hijacked, more cognitively dominant. And over time, this compounds. You start noticing opportunities others miss because you're not blinded by urgency. You start seeing patterns because you're not drowning in reaction. You start commanding respect because you radiate stability. The space where strategy lives. There is a space between stimulus and response. Most people rush through it. Strategists expand it. Inside that space, emotion cools. Information surfaces. Options multiply. Clarity emerges. That space is where long-term thinking meets action. It's where calculation replaces chaos. It's where discipline becomes power. The identity shift. You are no longer someone who reacts. You are someone who assesses. You no longer chase urgency. You create timing. You no longer defend instantly. You position strategically. You no longer move because something happened. You move because it serves your long-term design. The disciplined pause is not dramatic. It is quiet, almost invisible, but it changes trajectories. Because once you stop reacting, you start designing. And once you start designing, you stop being controlled by the moment. In the next section, we move deeper. Because seeing clearly requires more than discipline. It requires perception, pattern recognition, the ability to see what others miss. And that's where real strategic advantage begins.
Chapter 5. Pattern Recognition. How winners detect repetition, cycles in business, life, and relationships. Most people think strategy is about intelligence. It's not. It's about recognition, the ability to look at chaos and see repetition. Because nothing is truly random. Markets move in cycles, relationships follow patterns, power shifts in predictable ways. Human behavior repeats more than it surprises. The strategist doesn't see isolated events, he sees recurring structures. And once you see patterns, you stop being surprised by outcomes. The illusion of randomness. When something fails, people say, "I didn't see that coming." But often, the signs were there. They just weren't recognized. The problem wasn't lack of warning, it was lack of awareness. Most people live event to event. Strategists live pattern to pattern. They don't ask, "What just happened?" They ask, "What does this resemble?" Because resemblance reveals repetition, and repetition reveals predictability. Why most people miss patterns. Emotion blinds recognition. When you're emotionally involved, everything feels new, personal, unique. But zoom out. You'll notice the same personality types creating the same conflicts, the same financial habits producing the same outcomes, the same strategic mistakes collapsing businesses again and again.
Emotion narrows vision. Distance expands it. Strategists create distance. They detach just enough to observe objectively. Patterns in business. In business, cycles are everywhere. Boom and correction, innovation and saturation, growth and overexpansion, hype and collapse. Every industry has rhythm. The untrained eye sees opportunity. The trained eye asks, where are we in the cycle? If enthusiasm is extreme, risk is rising. If pessimism is everywhere, opportunity may be forming. Strategic thinkers don't move with emotion. They move with positioning inside the cycle. They understand timing depends on pattern awareness. Patterns in personal life. The same applies to your decisions. Do you overcommit, then burn out? Chase short-term validation, then regret it? Repeat similar relationship dynamics? Make impulsive financial decisions during emotional highs? These are not isolated mistakes. They are behavioral loops. Until you recognize the loop, you remain trapped inside it. Pattern recognition turns unconscious repetition into conscious correction. Cycles in relationships. Relationships follow predictable arcs: attraction, projection, reality, adjustment, or conflict. Many people mistake chemistry for compatibility. They mistake intensity for alignment. Strategic awareness asks, what has happened in similar situations before? Not cynically, not suspiciously, just analytically. Have you chosen this personality type before? Has this behavior pattern repeated? If yes, the outcome may not be as surprising as you think. Strategists learn from cycles, not just experiences.
Micro patterns versus macro patterns. There are two levels of recognition: micro patterns, small behavioral repetitions; macro patterns, large structural cycles. Micro: how someone negotiates, how someone handles pressure, how someone reacts to success. Macro: economic shifts, industry transitions, cultural trends. The more patterns you recognize, the less reactive you become, because surprise decreases, and decreased surprise increases control. Pattern recognition as a skill. This isn't mystical, it's observational. Ask consistently, what happened before this? What usually happens after this? Where have I seen this before? When you train yourself to compare current events with past structures, you sharpen strategic awareness. Over time, recognition becomes faster, almost intuitive, but intuition is often just compressed experience. The danger of ignoring patterns. Ignoring patterns is expensive. If you repeatedly enter partnerships with the same red flags, it's not bad luck, it's pattern blindness. If you repeatedly overextend financially during periods of growth, it's not misfortune, it's cycle ignorance. If you repeatedly lose leverage because you act too early, it's not bad timing, it's structural misunderstanding. Strategists ask, what does history say? Because history whispers before it repeats. Detecting repetition in others. Human behavior is shockingly predictable. People reveal their values through repetition. Watch. How do they respond when challenged? How do they behave when they gain power? How do they act when they lose leverage? Patterns reveal character. Character reveals future behavior. You don't need to guess someone's next move if you've observed their previous 10. This is not manipulation, it's awareness, and awareness protects position. Chess and the board. In chess, beginners see individual pieces, masters see structures, pawn chains, weak squares, recurring tactical motifs. A master recognizes positions from memory.
He doesn't calculate everything from scratch. He identifies familiar formations. Life works the same way. When you recognize structural similarity, you reduce cognitive load. You move from guessing to positioning. Anticipation through recognition. Pattern recognition fuels anticipation. If you know that overconfidence often precedes collapse, you watch for it. If you know that rapid success attracts resistance, you prepare for it. If you know that people under pressure reveal insecurity, you observe their behavior carefully. Anticipation is not prediction, it's probability management, and probability management is strategic power. Breaking negative loops. The most powerful use of pattern recognition is self-correction. Look at your last 5 major decisions. Is there a pattern? Look at your last 5 conflicts. Is there a pattern? Look at your financial habits. Is there a pattern? Until you identify repetition, you cannot redesign outcome. Strategists don't just analyze the world, they analyze themselves. Strategic journaling. One simple practice sharpens recognition. After major decisions or events, ask, what happened? Why did it happen? What signs existed before it happened? Have I seen this before? Writing forces reflection. Reflection builds pattern memory. Pattern memory builds foresight. Over time, you develop a mental archive, and that archive becomes advantage. Emotional triggers as patterns. Even emotional triggers repeat. Notice, when do you feel urgency? When do you feel threatened? When do you feel defensive? Triggers are patterns too. Once identified, they lose power, because you recognize the script. And once you recognize the script, you stop playing the role automatically. The strategic advantage of boredom. Strategists often appear calm, even bored. Why? Because they've seen similar situations before. They recognize the cycle. While others panic, they analyze. While others celebrate prematurely, they wait. Recognition reduces emotional extremes, and emotional stability preserves leverage. Seeing through chaos. Chaos often hides structure. A company in crisis might be experiencing poor incentive alignment, resource misallocation, leadership miscommunication. It looks emotional, but it's structural. Pattern recognition reveals root causes, and solving root causes is far more powerful than reacting to symptoms. Building a pattern library. Your mind becomes strategic when it builds a library of structures. Business failures, political power shifts, personal negotiation dynamics, market behavior, human motivation cycles. Study widely, observe consistently, reflect deliberately. The broader your exposure, the stronger your recognition, because you'll start seeing similarities others miss. When patterns deceive. But caution, not everything repeats perfectly. Patterns guide probability, not certainty. The strategist remains flexible. Pattern recognition is a compass, not a guarantee. Overconfidence in patterns creates blind spots. Balanced awareness creates dominance. From chaos to clarity. The world feels chaotic only when you lack reference points. When you understand cycles, chaos becomes predictable turbulence, and turbulence can be navigated. You stop fearing uncertainty, you start mapping it. The identity of the observer. You are no longer just reacting to events. You are observing structures. You are scanning for repetition. You are identifying loops. You are calculating probabilities. While others are overwhelmed by novelty, you are analyzing familiarity. The strategist does not panic in storms. He has seen storms before. He knows their rhythm. He understands their arc. And because he understands the pattern, he prepares accordingly. In the next chapter, we move deeper, because seeing patterns is powerful, but understanding systems, the invisible structures beneath those patterns, is where true strategic control begins.
Chapter 6. Systems Thinking. Problems are structural, not emotional. Mapping power and influence. Most people try to fix outcomes. Strategists fix systems. That difference alone changes everything. When something goes wrong, the average person asks, "Who messed up?" The strategist asks, "What structure allowed this to happen?" Because behavior is rarely random, it's shaped by incentives, constraints, pressures, rewards, environment. In other words, systems. The invisible architecture. Every result you see is produced by an invisible structure. A company collapsing? There's a system behind it. A relationship failing? There's a pattern of incentives and communication behind it. A team underperforming? The structure rewards the wrong behavior. You can shout at people, or you can redesign the structure. Strategists redesign structure. Emotion is the surface, structure is the cause. When something breaks, emotions explode. Anger, frustration, blame. But emotion is surface level. Underneath every emotional conflict is a system misalignment. If two business partners constantly clash, it's not personality, it's unclear roles. If employees lack motivation, it's not laziness, it's incentive misalignment. If someone keeps breaking promises, it's not just character, it's often structure. They benefit more from breaking than keeping. Strategic thinkers always look beneath emotion, because structure explains repetition. The chessboard, not the piece. Amateurs focus on individual moves. Masters study the board. In chess, one bad move rarely loses the game. Bad positioning does. Life works the same way. If you constantly feel pressured, rushed, or reactive, it's not just circumstance, it's your positioning. What responsibilities are you carrying? What leverage do you lack? What options have you eliminated? Strategists adjust positioning before they adjust behavior. Incentives drive behavior. There is a simple law of systems. People follow incentives. If someone benefits from chaos, chaos continues. If someone benefits from urgency, urgency becomes culture. If a system rewards short-term results, long-term thinking disappears. Understanding incentives is strategic power. Ask, who benefits from this outcome? What behavior is being rewarded? What behavior is being punished? The answers reveal structure. Structural thinking in business. Companies rarely fail because of one bad decision. They fail because they reward speed over accuracy. They prioritize growth over sustainability. They measure vanity metrics instead of meaningful ones. That's system failure. If you build a system that rewards noise, you get noise. If you build a system that rewards focus, you get depth. Strategists think architecturally. They design environments that produce desired behavior. Structural thinking in personal life. Look at your own habits. If you constantly procrastinate, is it laziness, or is your environment engineered for distraction? If you overspend, is it discipline, or is your financial structure too loose? If you struggle to focus, is it motivation, or is your digital ecosystem designed to fragment attention? Most personal problems are poorly designed systems. Change the structure, behavior shifts naturally. power mapping. Systems thinking also means mapping power. In any environment, power exists in layers: formal authority, informal influence, information control, resource control. The loudest person isn't always the most powerful. The one controlling access often is. Strategists ask, who makes the final decision? Who influences the decision maker? Who controls information flow? Who controls resources? When you map power correctly, you move smarter. Seeing leverage points. Not all system elements are equal. Some nodes create disproportionate impact. These are leverage points. In business, it might be pricing strategy. In relationships, it might be communication timing. In negotiations, it might be information asymmetry. The strategist looks for pressure points. Instead of pushing everywhere, he pushes where it multiplies. Systems over willpower. Willpower is unreliable. Loss later. Publicly embarrassing someone might win the argument but create long-term enemies. Overworking to win one project might burn trust or health. Taking shortcuts might damage reputation. Second-order thinkers measure cost beyond the surface. They value durability over drama. Mental simulation. Elite decision-makers simulate outcomes internally. They ask, if I take this action, what are 3 possible reactions? Then they simulate those reactions. Then they simulate responses to those reactions. This builds strategic depth. It slows impulsiveness. It strengthens judgment. The "and then what" rule. Before any major decision, ask, and then what? And then what? And then what? Keep going until the outcome stabilizes. When you do this, you often uncover hidden consequences, and hidden consequences are where most mistakes live. Controlling the tempo. Anticipation gives you tempo control. You decide when to accelerate, when to wait, when to provoke reaction, when to remain silent. Most people let the situation dictate pace. Strategists dictate the pace of the situation because they already know what's coming. Political and corporate lessons. History shows this clearly. Leaders who react emotionally lose. Leaders who calculate alliances, incentives, and consequences survive. In corporate battles, the winner isn't the loudest. It's the one who anticipated competitor moves months earlier. Preparation always beats reaction. Anticipation reduces fear. Fear exists when uncertainty dominates. When you anticipate possibilities, uncertainty shrinks. You don't eliminate risk, you reduce surprise. Surprise is what destabilizes most people. Strategists dislike surprises, so they eliminate them before they arrive. Second-order thinking in relationships. Before reacting emotionally, ask, if I say this, how does trust change? If I withdraw, how does perception shift? If I escalate, how does this affect long-term stability? Most relationship damage happens from first-order reactions. Second-order thinking protects long-term connection. The cost of impatience. Impatience destroys leverage because impatience reveals need, and revealed need weakens position. If you rush negotiation, you show desperation. If you rush opportunity, you show insecurity. Strategists rarely show urgency, even when they feel it, because anticipation protects image. Training the anticipation muscle. Anticipation improves with practice. Before every important decision, list 3 possible outcomes, list likely reactions, list contingency responses, then move. This discipline sharpens strategic thinking. When to stop calculating.
Second-order thinking is powerful, but endless simulation leads to paralysis. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is preparedness. Calculate enough to reduce blind spots, then execute. Anticipation prepares you. Action completes the move. From reaction to prediction. At first, you will force yourself to think ahead. Eventually, it becomes instinct. You'll naturally see consequences before others. You'll sense reactions before they speak. You'll detect risk before it explodes. And that's when you gain strategic edge. Anticipation turns you from reactive participant into predictive operator. You stop chasing problems. You intercept them. And in the next chapter, we sharpen this further. Because seeing ahead is powerful, but reading people, understanding motives, incentives, emotional leverage is where true dominance begins. Now we study human nature strategically.
Chapter 8. Reading People Strategically. Motives, incentives, emotional leverage, ethical influence. Consistency reveals truth, the invisible edge. If you master reading motives, understanding incentives, and aligning influence ethically, you gain an invisible edge. People feel understood, they feel respected, they feel seen, and that gives you strategic control without aggression. Because the strongest leverage is often psychological. Now you understand reaction. You understand anticipation. You understand human behavior. In the next chapter, we shift to movement. Chapter 9. Timing is a weapon. Strategic patience, high leverage moments. Most people lose not because their idea was wrong, but because their timing was. You can have the right move at the wrong moment, and the wrong moment turns strength into weakness. Timing is invisible strategy. It's not what you do, it's when you do it. The illusion of urgency. Urgency feels powerful. It feels productive. It feels decisive. But urgency is often emotional pressure disguised as importance. Strategists ask, is this urgent or is it emotional? Because emotional urgency forces reaction. Strategic timing chooses position. Why most people move too early? Moving early feels proactive. It feels bold. But early movement reveals your hand. It shows your intent. It exposes your leverage. Think of chess. If you attack before development, you weaken your own position. The strategist builds quietly first, then strikes. The cost of moving too late. There's danger on the other side, too. Overthinking kills momentum. Waiting for perfection invites paralysis. Timing is not delay for delay's sake. It's controlled patience. Patience with purpose. Strategic patience. Patience is misunderstood. People think patience means doing nothing. It doesn't. It means positioning. While others rush, you observe. While others reveal, you gather. While others react, you calculate. Patience is preparation in disguise. The power of letting others move first. In negotiation, in conflict, in opportunity, let them speak first. Let them show their cards. Information gained early creates leverage later. The first mover reveals intention. The second mover adapts. High leverage moments. Not all moments are equal. Some moments change trajectory. Some don't matter at all.
Strategists conserve energy for high-leverage moments. They don't argue every point. They don't react to every comment. They choose the battles that shape outcomes. Identifying leverage windows. Ask, when does this decision matter most? When is the cost of delay lowest? When is pressure highest? Opportunity often hides in pressure. Crisis creates openings, but only for those calm enough to see them. Emotional timing. If someone is angry, logic fails. If someone feels threatened, facts are useless. Timing includes emotional climate. The best argument delivered at the wrong emotional temperature will fail. Wait for openness. Then speak. The strategic pause. The pause is powerful. When challenged, don't answer immediately. Pause. That pause signals control. It disrupts expectation. It creates psychological space. Most people fear silence. Strategists use it. The market timing lesson. In business, entering a market too early drains capital. Entering too late reduces margin. Strategic timing studies trends, cycles, signals. It watches momentum. It doesn't guess blindly. It waits for alignment. Impulse versus decision. Impulse is emotional acceleration. Decision is strategic movement. Impulse reacts to stimulus. Decision evaluates consequence. Strategists reduce impulsive decisions because impulse weakens leverage. The sweet spot, speed plus stillness. Too slow, opportunity fades. Too fast, mistakes multiply. The sweet spot is controlled speed. You move quickly after you have clarity, not before. Reading momentum. Momentum is energy in motion. Sometimes you move because momentum is rising. Sometimes you wait because momentum is unstable. Forcing movement in unstable environments creates collapse. Strategists sense rhythm. Case study: the chess master. In high-level chess, masters often wait for the opponent to overextend. They provoke small weaknesses, then exploit. They don't rush victory. They create inevitability. That's timing. The CEO example. In corporate strategy, great CEOs delay announcements until positioning is complete. They don't reveal expansion plans until capital, partnerships, and logistics are aligned. Public timing matters. Internal timing matters. Visibility is strategic. The trap of act now. Marketing often says, act now. Fear of missing out drives rash action. Strategists don't act out of fear. They act out of advantage. Missing one opportunity is better than entering the wrong one. Delayed gratification as leverage. Impatience trades long-term gain for short-term satisfaction. Leverage compounds over time. The person who waits often wins larger. Patience builds advantage others don't see forming. Conflict timing. If someone attacks publicly, do you respond publicly? Maybe. Maybe not. Strategists choose response channel carefully. Sometimes silence destroys aggression. Sometimes delayed response shifts narrative. Immediate reaction often amplifies conflict. Controlled timing reshapes it. Timing in relationships. Pushing conversations when emotions are high creates resistance. Waiting for calm creates understanding. Timing isn't avoidance, it's respect for state.
Strategic retreat. Retreat is not surrender. It's repositioning. When timing is against you, withdraw temporarily. Preserve energy. Re-enter when advantage improves. Knowing when to strike. Eventually, waiting ends. There comes a moment when clarity is complete, when leverage is ready, when resistance is minimal. That's the strike moment. Move decisively. No hesitation. Prepared patience becomes powerful action. The internal clock. Strategists train internal timing. They sense when pressure peaks. They sense when fatigue lowers resistance. They sense when opportunity ripens. This isn't intuition alone. It's pattern recognition over time. Overcoming analysis paralysis. Too much information delays movement. Set decision thresholds. Ask, do I have enough clarity to move? If yes, move. Perfection is not required. Positioning is. Timing and reputation. Repeated impulsive action damages credibility. Repeated strategic timing builds authority. People trust those who move with control. When to speak. Speaking too early reduces mystery. Speaking too late loses influence. Strategists measure. Does this serve my position? Silence is often power. Time as a weapon. Time weakens some things. Time strengthens others. If time strengthens your position, wait. If time strengthens your opponent, move. Understanding who benefits from delay clarifies strategy. Psychological endurance. Timing requires emotional endurance. Watching others rush ahead without reacting requires discipline. Seeing short-term wins while building long-term advantage requires confidence. Strategists endure discomfort because they see further. Final insight. Timing is not passive. It's active calculation. It's the art of moving when probability favors you, not when emotion demands you. In the next chapter, we amplify this principle, because timing alone is powerful, but when combined with leverage, you don't just move well.
Chapter 10. Leverage. Winning with less effort. Multipliers. Compounding advantage. Hard work is respected. Leverage is feared. Because hard work is visible. Leverage is intelligent. Most people try to win by increasing effort. Strategists win by increasing impact. They don't ask, how can I do more? They ask, how can I make one move count 10 times? That is leverage. What leverage really means. Leverage is using a small force to move something large. In physics, a lever multiplies strength. In strategy, leverage multiplies results. It's the difference between pushing harder and positioning smarter. Most people exhaust themselves. Strategists amplify themselves. The myth of more effort. Effort alone doesn't scale. You have 24 hours. You have limited energy. Effort hits a ceiling. Leverage removes it. If your success depends only on your time, you're capped. If your success depends on systems, positioning, and influence, you expand. Multipliers. A multiplier turns one action into many outcomes. Think, one skill applied strategically creates multiple income streams. One relationship unlocks multiple opportunities. One system runs repeatedly without you. Multipliers create disproportionate returns. Compounding advantage. Leverage compounds. Small strategic advantages stack over time. Better decisions lead to better positioning. Better positioning leads to easier wins. Easier wins lead to stronger confidence. Compounding isn't explosive at first. It's quiet. Then it becomes unstoppable. The chess perspective. In chess, leverage is positional advantage. Control the center and every piece improves. That single positional edge multiplies options. You're not attacking constantly. You're improving position until the board tilts in your favor. That's leverage. Types of leverage. There are 4 major forms: knowledge leverage, relationship leverage, structural leverage, technological leverage. Strategists use all 4. Knowledge leverage. Information reduces risk. Understanding patterns increases accuracy. When you know more than the average person, your decisions become sharper. Reading widely. Studying cycles. Observing human behavior. Knowledge multiplies impact because it reduces mistakes. Relationship leverage. Relationships accelerate outcomes. One introduction can change trajectory. One partnership can scale results. Strategists don't collect contacts. They build alliances. They understand incentives. They create mutual benefit. Leverage isn't manipulation, it's alignment. Structural leverage. Structure beats chaos. A well-designed system replaces repeated effort. If you must decide something daily, you waste energy. Create rules. Create frameworks. Create repeatable processes. Structure multiplies consistency. Technological leverage. Technology scales effort. Automation saves time. Data increases precision. Platforms expand reach. Strategists adopt tools that multiply output, not tools that create distraction. The 80-20 reality. Not all actions are equal. Some actions generate most results. Find the 20 that produces 80. Double down there. Cut the rest. Leverage demands elimination. High leverage decisions. Some decisions define years. Career direction. Skill investment. Partnership choices. Geographic positioning. Strategists slow down for high leverage decisions. They don't rush life-altering moves. The power of focused force. Scattered effort weakens impact. Concentrated effort multiplies it. If you spread yourself thin, you dilute influence. If you concentrate strategically, you dominate selectively. Leverage requires focus. Energy as leverage. Your attention is leverage. Where you direct it determines outcome. If your attention is divided, your leverage drops. Strategists guard attention fiercely, because focus amplifies force. Playing the long game. Short-term effort burns out. Long-term leverage builds momentum. Build assets. Build skills. Build positioning. Over time, effort decreases while output increases. That's the leverage curve. The Elon Musk example, execution leverage. Consider how strategic CEOs operate. They don't personally execute every task. They design structures that execute repeatedly. Vision plus systems plus capital creates leverage. It's not about doing more personally. It's about designing better structures. Leverage in communication. Saying less often creates more impact. Strategic silence builds authority. Clear messaging builds influence. Precision multiplies persuasion. Rambling weakens leverage. Risk and leverage. High leverage increases reward, but it must be controlled. Over-leveraging creates collapse. Strategists calculate risk-to-reward ratios. They don't gamble blindly. They design asymmetry. Asymmetric strategy. Asymmetry means limited downside, significant upside. If you risk little and gain much, that's leverage. Always ask, what is my downside? What is my upside? Can I structure this better? Time leverage. Time invested early pays later. Learning foundational skills creates lifelong returns. Physical health multiplies longevity. Reputation compounds influence. Strategists invest early. Environment leverage. Your environment shapes behavior. Place yourself where growth is normal, where excellence is expected, where opportunities circulate. Environment multiplies progress without extra effort. Identity as leverage. If you identify as strategic, you act strategically. Identity influences decision patterns. Shift identity and behavior follows. You don't react anymore, you calculate. That identity becomes internal leverage. Removing friction. Leverage isn't always adding, sometimes it's removing obstacles. Eliminate distractions. Simplify commitments. Reduce noise. Clarity amplifies output. The power of one strategic move. Sometimes one move shifts everything. A career pivot. A relocation. A skill acquisition. A key relationship. Leverage is about recognizing which move matters most. Discipline meets leverage. Without discipline, leverage fails. Tools unused are useless. Systems ignored collapse. Strategists pair leverage with consistent execution. That combination creates dominance. Momentum amplification. Once leverage builds momentum, progress accelerates. People notice. Opportunities increase. Confidence rises. Momentum becomes self-reinforcing. That's compounding advantage in action. The strategic question. Before acting, ask, is this scalable? Is this repeatable? Is this high impact? If not, reconsider. Leverage is selective action. The silent advantage. Most people chase visible effort. Strategists chase invisible positioning. While others grind endlessly, you design intelligently. While others exhaust themselves, you multiply intelligently. Final insight. Effort alone is linear. Leverage is exponential. Linear progress tires you. Exponential progress transforms you. In the next chapter, we explore something quieter but equally powerful. Because sometimes the strongest leverage is not what you say, but what you don't. Strategic silence.
Chapter 11. Strategic silence. Information control. Calm presence. Most people talk too much. They reveal plans too early. They react publicly. They explain themselves constantly. And every unnecessary word reduces their leverage. Strategists understand something powerful. Silence is not weakness. It is positioning. When you speak less, you observe more. When you observe more, you understand more. And understanding is power. The illusion of constant expression. We live in an era that rewards noise. Post everything. Announce everything. React to everything. But visibility is not strategy. Exposure without purpose is vulnerability.
If people know your moves before you make them, you lose the advantage. Silence preserves optionality. Information is currency. Information is not just knowledge. It is control. The more people know about your fears, your intentions, your deadlines, your weaknesses, the more leverage they gain over you. Strategists share intentionally, not emotionally. The power of calm presence. Silence does something subtle. It shifts power dynamics. The calm person in a heated room appears stronger. The one who does not rush to defend appears confident. The one who listens fully appears intelligent. Calm presence destabilizes chaos, and chaos is often the opponent's weapon. Emotional economy. Every reaction costs energy. Every defense costs clarity. Every impulsive explanation reveals insecurity. Strategic silence reduces emotional leakage. It preserves mental bandwidth for calculated decisions. The observer advantage. When you speak first, you anchor yourself. When you let others speak, you gather intelligence. You learn their priorities, their fears, their motivations. You identify leverage points. The quiet strategist sees patterns others miss. Chess lesson. The quiet move. In chess, not every move is aggressive. Some moves are positional. They don't threaten immediately. They strengthen quietly. Silence works the same way. It strengthens position without exposing intention. Controlling the narrative. When you overshare, you lose narrative control. People interpret freely. Strategists reveal selectively. They shape perception deliberately. They don't correct every misunderstanding. Sometimes ambiguity is strategic. Silence as psychological pressure. Silence makes others uncomfortable. Humans rush to fill gaps. They reveal more than intended. In negotiation, the first person who speaks after an offer often weakens position. The strategist waits. Patience creates leverage. Digital silence. Silence applies online too. Not every thought needs publishing. Not every attack needs response. Not every opportunity needs public announcement. Move quietly. Win loudly. The danger of explaining yourself. Over-explaining signals insecurity. Confident individuals state and stop. They don't beg to be understood. They let outcomes speak. Your results are louder than your words. Silence and authority. Authority is often quiet. Leaders don't rush to justify. They decide calmly. They communicate clearly and without excess. Authority is not volume. It is stability. Emotional detachment. Strategic silence requires control. Not suppression. Control. It's the discipline to not respond emotionally. To not react impulsively. To not escalate unnecessarily. You choose response timing, not emotion. Information timing. Silence doesn't mean secrecy. It means timing. You reveal when advantageous. You speak when strategic. You hold back when necessary. Timing converts silence into power. The power of listening.
Listening builds influence. People trust those who listen deeply because they feel seen. Strategists build alliances through attentive presence. They learn what others value, and value creates leverage. Conflict and silence. Not every battle deserves engagement. Some conflicts dissolve when ignored. Some opponents weaken when denied reaction. Strategists choose their battles. They don't react to every provocation. Strategic vulnerability. Silence doesn't mean coldness. It means intentionality. When you choose to reveal vulnerability, it is controlled. It builds connection, not exploitation. Strategists decide what parts of themselves serve the long game. Protecting momentum. Momentum is fragile. Announcing goals too early dilutes drive. Public validation can replace internal hunger. Sometimes silence protects momentum. Work in private. Reveal in results. Silence in negotiation. The strongest negotiators are comfortable with silence. They let proposals sit. They don't rush to fill space. Silence signals strength. Impatience signals need. And need weakens position. The calm strategist. The strategic individual is rarely the loudest. They are steady, measured, intentional. Others feel their presence before hearing their voice. Social strategy. In social environments, observe before participating. Understand hierarchy. Identify influence. Detect alliances. Entering strategically is more effective than reacting emotionally. Silence and self-control. Every withheld reaction builds internal strength. You prove to yourself that emotion does not control you. Self-mastery compounds, and self-mastery is ultimate leverage. The long game of reputation. Reputation grows through consistency, not noise. People respect the individual who speaks carefully and delivers consistently. Reputation compounds silently. When to break silence. Silence is not permanent. It's tactical. Break silence when the message advances position. The timing increases leverage. The outcome requires clarity. Speak decisively. Then stop. Strategic communication formula. Think. Evaluate leverage. Decide timing. Deliver clearly. Exit calmly. No emotional residue. No unnecessary explanation. The inverse power principle. The more you need to be heard, the less influence you hold. The less you need approval, the more authority you project. Silence communicates confidence. Confidence attracts power. Internal silence. Strategic silence isn't just external. It's internal. Calming mental noise. Reducing reactive thoughts. Creating mental clarity. The quieter your mind, the sharper your strategy. The world rewards noise. Strategy rewards restraint. The loud individual seeks attention. The silent strategist builds advantage. In the next chapter, we explore adaptation, because silence without flexibility becomes rigidity, and rigidity breaks under pressure. But flexibility, applied strategically,
wins. Chapter 12. Adaptation without chaos. Pivoting intelligently. Rigid people break. Reactive people scatter. Strategic people adapt. But not emotionally. Not impulsively. Not in panic. They adapt with structure. Because flexibility without direction is chaos. And chaos destroys leverage. The illusion of control. Many people confuse control with stubbornness. They cling to plans even when conditions change. They force outcomes that no longer fit the landscape. And when reality pushes back, they double down emotionally. That's not strategy, that's ego. Strategists understand a deeper truth. Control is not forcing events. Control is adjusting position while protecting the objective. The difference between panic and pivot. Panic reacts to pressure. Pivot responds to information. Panic feels urgent. Pivot feels deliberate. Panic abandons the plan entirely. Pivot refines the plan intelligently. When markets shift. When relationships change. When unexpected resistance appears. The reactive person spirals. The strategist recalculates. The chess principle, position over attachment. In chess, attachment to a piece costs games. You may love your queen, but if sacrificing her wins the match, the strategist does it without emotion. Adaptation requires detachment. You are not attached to tactics. You are committed to outcomes. The core versus the method. Strategic adaptation begins with clarity. What is non-negotiable? What is flexible? Your mission should remain stable. Your method should remain fluid. Confusing the two creates frustration. If the method fails, adjust it. If the mission fails, redefine it. The stability-flexibility balance. Too much rigidity makes you fragile. Too much flexibility makes you unreliable. Strategists operate in balance. They move when evidence demands it. They hold when patience benefits them. Adaptation is not weakness. It is responsiveness with structure. Emotional stability under change. Most people resist change because it threatens identity. I've always done it this way. That sentence kills innovation. Strategic individuals detach ego from execution. If new information appears, they update. They don't argue with reality, they adjust to it. The intelligence of reassessment. Every strategist reassesses regularly. Not constantly, not obsessively, but deliberately. What has changed? What remains stable? What new variables exist? Without reassessment, plans decay. Without adaptation, momentum collapses. The danger of over-adapting. Some people pivot too often. They chase trends. They abandon consistency. Every obstacle becomes a redirection. That's not agility, that's instability. Strategic adaptation protects direction. It doesn't erase it. The three-layer adjustment model. When circumstances shift, evaluate at 3 levels. Objective: does the goal still make sense? Strategy: is the path still optimal?
tactics? Do small actions need refinement? Most situations require tactical adjustments, not total reinvention. Strategic agility in business. Markets change. Technology evolves. Competitors move. The strongest companies don't collapse. They reposition. They evolve offerings. They refine messaging. They optimize systems. But the mission remains intact. Adaptation protects survival. Strategic agility in personal growth. Your life will not move linearly. Plans fail. Opportunities shift. People change. The strategist does not interpret setbacks as identity failure. They treat them as data. And data guides adaptation. The calm pivot. When forced to change direction, pause. Analyze. Evaluate leverage. Adjust incrementally. Avoid dramatic swings. Stability during transition preserves authority. Learning from failure without identity collapse. Failure is information, not condemnation. Reactive people collapse emotionally. Strategists extract lessons. What worked? What didn't? What patterns repeat? Every loss becomes calibration. Flexibility without weakness. Flexibility does not mean surrender. It means recalibration. You bend without breaking. You adjust without losing control. You remain steady while others panic. That steadiness creates advantage. Adapting in conflict. In negotiations or disagreements, the rigid person escalates. The adaptive strategist shifts tone, reframes discussion, or changes approach. They prioritize outcome over ego. Winning emotionally is not strategic. Winning positionally is. Environmental awareness. Adaptation requires awareness. You must read market shifts, social dynamics, power structures, timing variables. Those who ignore environment operate blindly. Those who observe move intelligently. Controlled experimentation. Strategists test small changes before committing large shifts. They gather feedback. They refine. They scale gradually. Sudden dramatic moves create instability. Measured experiments create confidence. The psychological advantage of composure. In chaos, people search for anchors. If you remain calm, you become the anchor. And anchors influence direction. Your emotional steadiness becomes leverage. Timing and adaptation. Not every change requires immediate action. Sometimes waiting provides clearer data. Adaptation is not speed, it is precision. Move when probability improves. The identity of the adaptive strategist. Strategists don't fear change. They expect it. They design with uncertainty in mind. They build flexibility into systems. They plan contingencies. Prepared minds adapt smoothly. The danger of pride. Pride blocks adaptation. You were wrong. Strategists accept that possibility early. Correction is strength. Persistence without evidence is stubbornness. Real-world scenario. Imagine launching a project. Market feedback is negative. Reactive approach: defend, argue, blame. Strategic approach: analyze, refine, reposition. One protects ego, the other protects outcome. Adaptation as strategic evolution. Evolution doesn't happen instantly. It happens through consistent micro-adjustments. Their strategy evolves slowly but powerfully. Their growth is quiet but undeniable. Building adaptive systems. Instead of rigid plans, build adaptive systems. Systems that can scale,
Adjust. Reallocate resources. Flexibility inside structure is unstoppable. The strategic rule of 70%. When conditions shift, act when you have 70% clarity. Waiting for 100% certainty kills momentum. Moving at 30% clarity creates chaos. Balance action and patience. Adaptive leadership. Leaders who adapt inspire confidence. Leaders who panic create instability. The calm strategist absorbs shock and redistributes pressure intelligently. Long-term dominance through adaptation. Long-term winners are rarely the strongest. They are the most adaptable. Strength breaks under stress. Adaptation absorbs stress. The final insight. Adaptation without chaos is controlled evolution. You don't react wildly. You don't cling stubbornly. You calculate. You adjust. You maintain direction. And because you adapt without losing clarity, you stay ahead while others struggle to keep up. In the next chapter, we move from flexibility to execution. Because strategy without execution is imagination. And imagination alone does not win. Execution does.
Chapter 13. Closing the execution gap. Strategy without action is fantasy. You can think 5 moves ahead. You can read patterns. You can anticipate obstacles. You can understand leverage. But if you don't move, you lose anyway. There is a silent graveyard filled with brilliant strategies that were never executed. Ideas are common. Plans are common. Intelligence is common. Execution is rare. And rarity creates advantage. The execution gap. The execution gap is the distance between what you know and what you do. Most people live inside that gap. They research endlessly. They refine endlessly. They optimize endlessly. But they hesitate to act. Why? Because action exposes you to risk. Strategy feels powerful. Execution feels vulnerable. But only one produces results. Why smart people fail. Intelligent individuals often struggle more with execution. They overanalyze. They forecast too many scenarios. They wait for perfect conditions. But perfect conditions never arrive. Strategists understand something crucial. Clarity increases through movement, not before it. From planner to operator. There are thinkers and there are operators. Thinkers map the territory. Operators move through it. The strategist must become both. Strategy builds the blueprint. Execution builds the structure. Without execution, strategy is theory. The cost of hesitation. Hesitation feels safe. It protects your ego. If you never act, you never fail publicly. But hesitation costs momentum. It costs opportunity. It costs time. And time is leverage. Every delay is a decision. Action as strategic discipline. Execution is not emotional. It is disciplined. You act not because you feel inspired. You act because it aligns with the plan. Emotion fluctuates. Commitment does not. The 80% rule. Strategic execution rarely requires perfection. When you reach 80% clarity, move, refine as you go. Waiting for complete certainty paralyzes progress. Imperfect execution beats perfect intention. Eliminating friction. The execution gap often hides in friction. Too many decisions, too many steps, too many distractions. Simplify. Reduce complexity. Design systems that make action automatic. Discipline thrives in structure. The power of small moves. Massive breakthroughs are built on small, repeated actions. Daily execution compounds. Small moves repeated consistently beat dramatic bursts of motivation. Consistency creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence fuels bigger execution. Execution without drama. Reactive individuals announce their intentions loudly. Strategists move quietly. They don't debate the plan, they implement it. They don't seek applause, they seek results. Strategic urgency. Execution requires urgency without panic. Urgency recognizes time matters. Panic loses clarity. Move deliberately, move efficiently, but move. The myth of motivation. You will not always feel motivated. Execution does not wait for mood. It operates on commitment. The strategist asks, what must be done today to move one square forward? Then they do it. Removing emotional attachment to results. Execution should not depend on immediate success. Some moves fail. Some experiments collapse. The strategist executes, evaluates, refines. Execution is iterative. The CEO example. Consider a high-level executive. They don't debate every minor decision. They delegate, they prioritize, they move. They understand delay weakens position. Action strengthens it. Bridging thought and movement. A simple principle closes the gap. Decide, schedule, execute. If it's not scheduled, it's fantasy. Time allocation reveals priorities. Decision fatigue and execution. Too many decisions drain execution power. Strategists eliminate unnecessary choices. They standardize routines. They automate habits. Energy is reserved for high-leverage actions. Execution in uncertainty. You will never have complete information, but waiting reduces opportunity. Calculated action beats passive observation. When in doubt, act small, but act. Measuring progress. Execution must be measurable. What gets measured gets refined. Track progress. Review weekly. Adjust accordingly. Without metrics, execution drifts. The compound effect of daily execution. Imagine executing one focused action every single day for a year. That is 365 strategic moves. Most people execute intensely for 1 week and disappear for 3. The strategist shows up every day, not emotionally, professionally. Protecting execution time. Execution requires protection. Silence distractions. Eliminate unnecessary obligations. Guard your focus window. Time is your battlefield. Protect it. The psychological shift. When you consistently execute, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as a planner. You become a builder. Builders win. Overcoming resistance. Resistance appears in subtle forms. I'll start tomorrow. It's not the right time. I need more preparation. Recognize resistance as fear disguised as logic. Strategic individuals move through discomfort. Execution as self-respect. When you consistently execute, you build internal trust. You begin believing your own promises, and self-trust is a powerful strategic asset. Momentum as a weapon.
Momentum reduces friction. Once you start moving, movement becomes easier. Execution creates its own motivation. The hardest part is the first decisive move. Avoiding overextension. Execution must align with leverage. Don't chase everything. Focus on high-impact moves. Small, focused efforts beat scattered activity. Real-world strategic example. In competitive markets, companies that execute faster capture territory, not because they are smarter, because they move. Speed plus clarity outperforms slow perfection. The identity shift. At some point, execution becomes natural. You don't negotiate with yourself. You decide, you act. The strategist inside you becomes operational. The final reality.
Strategy without execution is entertainment. Execution without strategy is chaos. But strategy plus execution is dominance. You close the gap by refusing to live in thought alone. You build, you test, you refine, and slowly results accumulate. Because the world does not reward those who understand, it rewards those who act. In the next chapter, we turn execution into habit. Because isolated action creates results, but repeated action creates power. Chapter 14. Strategic Habits. Daily mental upgrades. Consistency as a weapon. Big moves impress people. Small moves repeated daily change your life. This is where most people fail. They believe strategy is about brilliance, a powerful insight, a genius move. But strategy at the highest level is habit, not motivation, not bursts of intensity. Habit. Because what you do occasionally doesn't define you. What you do repeatedly does. The myth of the big break. People wait for breakthroughs, the perfect opportunity, the big connection, the major deal. But breakthroughs are built on preparation, and preparation is daily. The strategist doesn't depend on moments, they depend on systems. Strategic habits create strategic advantage. A habit is automated discipline. When behavior becomes automatic, it consumes less energy, less emotional negotiation, less resistance, less friction. Strategists reduce reliance on willpower by designing routines. Because willpower fluctuates, structure does not. Identity before action. Habits are not about productivity, they are about identity. You don't wake up and say, I hope I feel strategic today. You operate strategically because that is who you are becoming. Every small disciplined action confirms your identity. The power of daily thinking time. One of the most powerful strategic habits is thinking time. 10 to 20 minutes daily. No phone, no noise, no urgency, just reflection. What worked? What failed? What needs adjusting? Strategists refine constantly. Mental rehearsal as routine. High performers rehearse mentally. Athletes visualize. Chess players simulate. Executives anticipate conversations. Strategic individuals practice scenarios in advance, not obsessively, deliberately. Preparation reduces emotional volatility. Input control. You cannot think strategically if your mind is cluttered. Strategic habits include information discipline. Curate what you consume. Limit noise. Protect clarity. The average person scrolls. The strategist studies. Physical discipline fuels mental discipline. Your body influences your mind. Sleep, nutrition, movement. These are not lifestyle trends. They are cognitive amplifiers. A fatigued mind reacts. A rested mind calculates. Decision automation. Every unnecessary decision drains execution energy. Strategists standardize morning routines, work blocks, exercise windows. Consistency reduces chaos. Chaos drains strategy. The power of a defined routine. A defined routine creates rhythm. Rhythm creates flow. Flow creates efficiency. You don't wake up asking, "What should I do today?" You know, and clarity accelerates execution. Review and adjust. Strategic habits require feedback, weekly review, monthly reflection. Where did you waste time? Where did you gain leverage? Where did you react instead of calculate? Refinement separates amateurs from masters. The discipline of saying no. One overlooked habit is elimination. Daily, you must decline something, a distraction, an invitation, a low-leverage opportunity. Saying no is strategic protection. Compound thinking. Every daily habit compounds. Reading 10 pages daily equals 12 books per year. 30 minutes of focused skill building creates expertise over time. Strategists think in accumulation. Avoiding burnout through structure. Strategic consistency is not frantic, it is sustainable. Short, focused work blocks, clear boundaries, intentional rest. Consistency collapses when exhaustion dominates. Pace yourself. Emotional regulation as a habit. Calm is practiced. You don't suddenly become composed under pressure, you train for it. Daily breathing resets, intentional pauses, measured responses. Emotional control is rehearsed. Micro-commitments. Large goals overwhelm. Micro-commitments build momentum. One call, one page written, one proposal sent. Strategists break ambition into daily execution. Tracking progress. What gets tracked improves, not obsessively, but intentionally. Metrics reveal patterns. Patterns reveal leverage. The silent edge. Consistency looks boring from the outside, but inside it builds confidence. Because each completed action reinforces belief. Self-trust compounds. The habit of preparation. Before meetings, before negotiations, before decisions, prepare. 5 minutes of preparation prevents 5 hours of correction. Strategists respect preparation. Controlling energy peaks. Not every hour is equal. Identify your high-energy windows. Use them for high-value tasks. Low-energy windows handle maintenance. Energy alignment improves output. Strategic rest. Rest is not laziness, it is recalibration. Overworked minds lose clarity. Strategists recover before depletion. Daily reading of the board. Just like a chess player reassesses the board each move, you reassess your position daily. Who holds influence? What shifted? What changed? Situational awareness is not occasional, it is routine. Strategic communication habit. Speak less, listen more, observe reactions. Communication reveals information. Information builds advantage. Building mental toughness. Discomfort is unavoidable. Strategists do small, hard things daily. Cold showers, difficult conversations, focused, deep work. This builds resilience. Resilience supports strategy. Protecting focus blocks. Deep work is sacred. 2 hours of uninterrupted focus outperform 8 scattered hours. Protect these blocks fiercely. Focus builds mastery. The compounding effect of calm. Daily calm responses create long-term stability. While others panic, you remain steady. Consistency under pressure builds reputation. Reputation builds influence. Long-term self-trust. Every time you follow through, you reinforce identity. You become reliable to yourself. And self-reliability is the foundation of strategic dominance. The strategic loop. Think, act, review, adjust, repeat daily. This loop turns strategy into evolution. Why most people quit? They expect fast rewards. Strategic habits reward slowly, but slowly becomes suddenly. The accumulation of invisible effort creates visible outcomes. Becoming dangerous through routine. Dangerous individuals are not chaotic. They are disciplined, predictable in effort, unpredictable in advantage, because their foundation is solid. The final truth. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your habits. Strategic habits transform potential into position. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is lethal in the long run. In the final chapter, we complete the transformation, because strategy is not something you do, it is something you become. You don't react anymore, you calculate, and you design outcomes before they arrive. Chapter 15. Living 5 moves ahead. You don't react anymore. You calculate. There is a moment in every transformation where effort turns into identity, where discipline stops feeling forced, where control stops feeling difficult, where strategy stops being something you try to apply and becomes the way you see the world. That is this moment. Living 5 moves ahead is not about paranoia. It is not about overthinking. It is not about manipulation. It is about awareness. It is about positioning. It is about understanding that life is not random chaos. It is a board. And most people are moving pieces without ever studying it. The difference between players and designers. Players react to the board. Designers shape it. Players respond emotionally. Designers respond strategically. When you live 5 moves ahead, you are no longer trapped inside the present moment. You are evaluating consequences before they exist. You are assessing leverage before it disappears. You are anticipating pressure before it builds. And this changes everything. The end of emotional whiplash. When you stop reacting impulsively, life becomes quieter. Not easier, quieter. Because emotional spikes reduce. You no longer over-celebrate temporary wins. You no longer panic over temporary losses. You understand positioning. And positioning is long-term. A setback becomes information. A delay becomes timing. A challenge becomes leverage. Your nervous system stabilizes because you are not surprised by reality anymore. You expect resistance. You plan for friction. You prepare for volatility. And preparation breeds calm. Thinking in sequences, not events. Average thinkers see events. Strategic thinkers see sequences. A job offer is not just income. It is network access, skill expansion, future leverage, reputation building. A conversation is not just dialogue. It is positioning, information gathering, trust development, influence calibration. When you live 5 moves ahead, you evaluate decisions by trajectory, not by immediate emotion. You ask, where does this lead? What doors does this open? What doors does this close? What position does this create 3 moves from now? This mindset eliminates randomness. The power of controlled patience. 5-move thinking requires restraint. You will see opportunities others rush toward. You will see reactions others jump into. You will escalate arguments others jump into. And you will pause. Because speed without direction is noise. And noise destroys position. Living 5 moves ahead means knowing when not to move. Sometimes the most powerful move is waiting. Let others reveal their strategy. Let others expose their weaknesses. Let others exhaust themselves. Then move precisely. Identity shift from actor
to architect. You are no longer inside the chaos. You are observing it. This is the identity shift. You stop asking, "What should I do right now?" You start asking, "What outcome do I want to engineer?" This question changes behavior, because now you are not reacting to circumstances. You are shaping them. You are building momentum intentionally. You are choosing conflicts wisely. You are investing energy selectively. And that selectivity is power. The emotional advantage. Living 5 moves ahead does not mean suppressing emotion. It means mastering it. Emotion becomes data, not commander. Frustration tells you something is misaligned. Fear signals potential risk. Excitement highlights opportunity. But none of them control you. Because you calculate, you assess, you adjust, and then you act. Designing outcomes. Most people chase outcomes. Strategists design them. There is a difference. Chasing is reactive. Designing is proactive. If you want influence, you build credibility daily. If you want leverage, you accumulate value consistently. If you want financial freedom, you construct systems patiently. Living 5 moves ahead means building the foundation before the opportunity appears. So when the opportunity arrives, you are ready. Strategic relationships. You no longer form relationships randomly. You evaluate alignment, shared vision, mutual leverage, complementary strengths. You understand incentives. You read consistency. You invest in people who build with you, not drain you. And when you walk away quietly. No drama. Just repositioning. Anticipating resistance. Every goal attracts friction. Living 5 moves ahead means planning for that friction. What obstacles are likely? What objections might arise? What weaknesses must be strengthened? You pre-solve problems. So when resistance appears, you are not surprised. You are prepared. Prepared minds move confidently. The discipline of focused energy. 5-move thinkers do not scatter. They concentrate. They eliminate low-leverage distractions. They ignore noise. They protect attention like capital. Because attention is capital. And scattered capital produces weak returns. You narrow your field. You deepen your mastery. You move deliberately. The silent confidence. When you live 5 moves ahead, your confidence changes. It is no longer loud. It is grounded. You don't need validation. You don't need constant recognition. You know your position. And knowledge of position creates internal stability. People sense this. Calm authority draws respect. Strategic adaptation. Living ahead does not mean rigidity. It means agility with foresight. If new information appears, you update the plan. If conditions shift, you pivot intelligently. But you never panic. Because panic belongs to those who are surprised by change. You expect change. And you design flexibility. The long game advantage. The long game rewards patience. While others burn energy chasing short wins, you accumulate advantage. Skill stacks. Networks expand. Capital compounds. Reputation strengthens. 5-move thinking is compounding strategy. Small daily discipline becomes exponential advantage. Becoming the calm center. In crisis, people look for stability. When you operate strategically, you become that stability. You are not the loudest voice. You are the clearest voice. You assess facts. You identify leverage. You suggest moves with precision. And precision earns trust. Trust earns influence. Eliminating regret. Regret often follows impulse. When you calculate, regret decreases, because decisions are intentional. Even if outcomes vary, you understand the reasoning. You refine. You improve. You evolve. But you rarely wish you had paused longer, because you already did. The final identity. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to survive. You see yourself as someone positioning to win. Not in ego, not in dominance, but in design. You don't chase validation. You build leverage. You don't rush into chaos. You assess. You don't fear delays. You use them. You don't react anymore. You calculate. The strategic loop completed. You began this journey reacting. Now you evaluate. You began emotionally driven. Now you are position driven. You began chasing outcomes. Now you design them. This is the shift. Living 5 moves ahead is not a technique. It is a perspective. And once you see the board, you can't unsee it. The closing truth. Life is not random. It is patterned. It is layered. It is influenced. And those who understand the layers shape the outcomes. So the next time you face pressure, pause. See the board. Assess the incentives. Evaluate the timing. Identify leverage. And move only when position favors you. Because from this point forward, you don't chase outcomes anymore. You design them.
The architect of outcomes. There is a quiet shift that happens when you stop reacting to life and start reading it. You begin to notice patterns where others see chaos. You begin to see positioning where others see luck. You begin to see leverage where others see limitation. And slowly, without noise, without announcement, without performance, you become different. Not louder, not more aggressive, more precise. You no longer rush. You observe.
You no longer panic. You calculate. You no longer chase every opportunity. You select the right ones. Because now you understand something most people never learn. Life is not about speed. It is about position. Think about who you were before this shift. Reacting, explaining, defending, moving emotionally. Now imagine who you are becoming. Measured, aware, strategic, intentional. The difference between those 2 versions is not talent. It is awareness. It is discipline. It is the decision to think before you move. The world rewards the loud, but it is ruled by the strategic. It rewards the reactive in the short term, but it crowns the calculated in the long term. And long term is where empires are built. You don't need to dominate every room. You need to understand the room. You don't need to win every argument. You need to position yourself so arguments are unnecessary. You don't need to control everything. You need to influence the direction. That is power. Quiet, deliberate, unshakable. From this moment forward, remember this. Before you speak, pause. Before you move, assess. Before you commit, calculate. Ask yourself, what is the position? What is the leverage? What is the timing? What is the long-term consequence? This single habit will separate you from 90% of people, because most live in reaction. Very few live in design. Strategic thinking is not cold. It is clarity. It is protecting your energy. It is protecting your position. It is protecting your future. It is choosing to move only when movement advances you.
And here is the final truth. You do not need to prove your intelligence. You do not need to broadcast your strategy. You do not need to announce your moves. The most powerful players are often the quietest. They see further. They wait longer. They strike precisely, and they rarely need to explain. As you leave this audiobook, carry this identity with you. You are no longer a reactor. You are a strategist. You are no longer overwhelmed by pressure. You read pressure. You are no longer surprised by resistance. You anticipate it. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You design them. And when challenges appear, because they will, remember, the board is always visible to those who slow down enough to study it. See further, think deeper, move smarter, stay 5 moves ahead, and build a life that unfolds exactly how you intended.
If this message spoke to you, share it, subscribe, keep listening. This is Beyond the Noise Studio.